Morning, friends. Ash here, WAT News, with some more election and news updates. I wanted to follow up on the Michigan audit of the machines that was done by a certain lawyer, and Michigan politicians continue to prevent the release of information of the IT forensic investigation of the Dominion voting machine in Antrim County by Joe Hoft. What are the leaders in Michigan trying to hide? A couple of days ago, we reported how the Michigan Attorney General is attempting to hide the results of a forensic IT investigation of the Dominion voting machines in Antrim County. Michigan AG hides forensic audit of Dominion voting machines in Antrim County where 6,000 votes were flipped. The leadership of Michigan wants to prevent the release of the information. Next, Michigan Secretary of State petitioned and a judge allowed the Michigan Secretary of State to intervene in the case related to the investigation. Important developments in Michigan. Hate to break it to the Michigan Secretary of State, but her 2020 election was corrupted and hacked by adverse foreign interests who approved bringing in Dominion. Let's check this out. What's this link about? Internet's real slow, man. I actually froze up before. I couldn't even do this. Another report. I was trying to do this before. Northern Michigan judge. This is out of Detroit News. Beth LeBlanc. December 10th, 2020. Northern Michigan judge gives Benson okay to intervene in Antrim County election. A Northern Michigan judge granted Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson permission to intervene in a case questioning results in Antrim County and the Secretary of Tabulators used there on November 3rd. Judge Kevin Eisenheimer ruled Tuesday that Attorney General Dana Nessel's office could intervene on behalf of Benson, who had argued she had supervisory control over the Antrim County clerk, had an interest in any audit discussions the case may raise, and was party to the county's contract with Dominion voting systems. The Secretary of State's office is concerned particularly with forensic imaging performed on Antrim County's 22 Dominion tabulators earlier this week by a Village of Central Lake resident and Allied Security Operations Group, said Assistant Attorney General Heather Meingast. We'd like to know more about what was obtained, what the intent is for the use of the images obtained, Meingast said, noting the disclosure of some elements of the tabulators could compromise their security in future elections. So these people don't want the information to come out, right? Because they're scared of something. And they already showed that 6,000 votes were switched in that county. So the question becomes, why are they now stopping this from coming out? They're claiming that, from what I can understand, that they signed some kind of a, when you use Dominion, you have to sign a contract. So if that's the case, then, that contract is binding if they signed it. But the issue was that I read in another article about this, that they delivered a contract that was unsigned. So it's going to come out, it's going to come down to the fact that, was it signed or not? Eisenheimer, a Republican former lawmaker and member of former Governor Rick Snyder's administration, granted Meingast's request but warned the case would proceed in haste. I intend to move this matter quickly, aggressively, Eisenheimer said. Benson shouldn't be allowed to intervene because she had missed the opportunity to do so earlier and did not have direct involvement in local elections, said Matthew DePerno, a lawyer for Antrim County resident William Bailey. In fact, the State Court of Claims judge earlier this month dismissed the case against Benson on those grounds, DePerno said. The court concluded there was no relief to be granted because elections are local and run by local officials, he said. DePerno said the investigation is ongoing and data are being reviewed, but based on what had been reviewed so far, Bailey would move to decertify the Antrim County certification and push the issue to the GOP-led legislature, he said. We think there are serious issues, and we're preparing right now a motion to seek relief from the court from the protective order, DePerno said. Eisenheimer last week granted Bailey's request to take forensic images of 22 tabulators and review those along with flash drive software and a master tabulator, quote-unquote, that the county said does not exist. Bailey and members of the Allied Securities Operation Group spent about 8 hours on Sunday at county offices obtaining the material. Allied Security Operations Group's Russell Ramsland Jr. was listed in a lawsuit filed by lawyer Sidney Powell last month in Michigan seeking to overturn Democratic President-elect Joe Biden's 154,000 vote win in Michigan over Republican President Donald Trump. Ramsland raised concerns about spikes in votes tallied for Biden after 2 a.m. the day after the election. The spike was expected since more Republicans tended to vote on Election Day than Democrats, in part due to warnings about mail-in voting from Trump. Absentee ballots generally took longer to process and often showed up in vote tallies late on November 3rd or the day after. In an affidavit filed in a Georgia case, Ramsland, who also appeared to make a mistake by confusing townships in Minnesota with townships in Michigan, according to national reports. In his lawsuit, Bailey said he was one of the first people to notice a vote reporting error in Antrim County that put Biden thousands of votes ahead of Trump in the Republican-leading county. Bailey alerted a local election official, and the votes were pulled down to fix the error. Trump later was shown to have a more than 5,000 vote lead in a county where about 16,000 votes were cast. In his initial complaint, Bailey alleged that the Antrim County presidential election lacked all accuracy and integrity, but Eisenhower in last week's order focused on a proposed marijuana retailer ordinance in the village of Central Lake where a 262 to 262 tie was overturned by one vote after a November 6 retabulation. 3 ballots were alleged to have been damaged and reproduced to allow for retabulation. Bailey argued those ballots don't show up in the final count. The issue with Antrim County's presidential results occurred after County Clerk Cheryl Guy failed to update election software on all tabulators after performing an update to 2 of them. The failure caused the machines to transpose results as they were sent to the county's main software. The issue pushed Dominion voting systems into the national spotlight and made it subject to several unproven claims of fraud. Guy told lawmakers the county would have caught the issue during canvassing if it hadn't been brought to their attention earlier by comparing tabulator tapes to the unofficial results on the main software. So the question is, it seems like that this woman didn't do the update, right? Why didn't she do it to the rest of them? Did she see something going on and she stopped? And that's why the failure caused the machines to transpose results? Or maybe she saw something was going wrong and she didn't want to keep doing it because she realized she might be actually part of it, unknowingly being part of switching votes. So we don't know how this is going to all play out. I just wanted to read that interesting couple of articles. This is the other thing I wanted to talk about, and I can't put it in the inside the video title or it won't be allowed up on YouTube, I'm pretty sure. This is a bill that's making its way through the New York State Senate right now. It's Assembly Bill A11179, and it relates to administering a C-19 vaccine. It's brought by Miss Rosenthal, who is an Upper West Side, what do they call that? She works on the Upper West Side. That's her district area, and she's trying to basically, this is, before I get started, I noticed something else about, I don't know what it was, a few days ago now. Cuomo came out and had a dual news conference with de Blasio, which never happens. These two guys, let me tell you, they don't like each other. Let's just leave it at that. Cuomo and de Blasio have been at odds with each other this whole time. They've been giving alternate information. They've been, just not on the same page, especially in terms of the schools. So anyway, they have this news conference, and Cuomo's going on and on and on about the vaccine and how we have to have 75 to 80%. He even had Fauci on before this, right? I think he had Fauci on, and then he brings in de Blasio, and he's going on, and you can go watch it. Just go look up Cuomo and Fauci, and then Cuomo and de Blasio news conference. It was only about less than a week ago. And they're going on and on about we need 75 to 80% of the people to take this. We have to have that number or else we can't get back to normal. We can't. And they're talking about you still have to wear the mask. So you can see that they are pushing this hard. And the problem is that a lot of people, rightly so, are skeptical about any company that can say I have a viable vaccine for something within 1 year that's safe, right? And we've looked into some of the others, and I've put some of those up on my other sites. And you could go watch those about Moderna and stuff like that, right? And they're showing it to you, right? Moderna, MODE-RNA. So they're modifying your RNA, right? Modify RNA, MODRNA. So they show it to you. Now, this bill is still in the Assembly. It's not on the floor. It's not passed, but it's in committee. and it's a disturbing bill. And as far as I'm concerned, it's in the current committee, Assembly Health, Public Health Law. They want to add this law to the public health, which requires a C-19 vaccine to be administered in accordance with the Department of Health's C-19 vaccination administration program, and mandates vaccination in certain situations. Mandates, which is saying that they want to make certain people have to take it. And this is December 4th, 2020, in Assembly 11179. Introduced by Committee on Rules at request of A. L. Rosenthal. Read once and referred to the Committee on Health, an act to amend the public health law in relation to administering a C-19 vaccine. The people of the state of New York, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, Article 21 of the Public Health Law is amended by adding a new Title 8 to read as follows. Title 8, C-19. Section 2178, C-19 vaccination. C-19 vaccination, number 1, at the time of vaccination for COVID-19 is approved by the U.S. State Food and Drug Administration Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research Vaccine Product Approval Process and the New York State Clinical Advisory Task Force. Such vaccination shall be required to be safely and effectively distributed in accordance with the Department's C-19 Vaccination Administration Program. 2. Once the U.S. Food and Drug Administration Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research and the New York State Clinical Advisory Task Force have approved the safety and effectiveness of a C-19 vaccination, and promotion and distribution plans of such vaccine have been begun pursuant to the Department's C-19 Vaccination Administration Program. Excuse me. If public health officials determine that residents of the state are not developing sufficient immunity from C-19, the Department shall mandate vaccination for all individuals or groups of individuals who, as shown by clinical data, are proven to be safe to receive such vaccine. Any individual who has received a medical exemption from a licensed medical professional shall not be mandated to receive the C-19 vaccine and shall be excluded from the requirements of this section. 2. This act shall take effect immediately. And that's all we get. So, again, not to panic people, but this is in the Assembly right now, and people need to be aware of it, right? And if you want to look up L. Rosenthal, she's Upper West Sider. You can start sending emails to her and saying that you don't support this, right? The question is going to be, how are you going to do that, right? You're allowing health professionals now who don't know these people, right, who don't know their personal medical histories, and they're going to be able to sign off and say, hey, you're okay to take the vaccine, and now you have to take it. Now, the question is, how do you do that, right? At the point of a gun? I mean, how are you going to force people to do it, right? You're going to go start rounding people up street by street out of their homes and enforce inoculating them? I don't see that going over too well, right? So, I don't know, guys. It seems like they had to push ahead, way further ahead in their fake plan here before they really were ready to do so, because they need something to explain away why their central bank system that they have is imploding, right? And usually how they would do that is with a war, some kind of event that's staged, right? A false flag, right? Maybe 9/11 type deal, something like that, right? Get us involved in another country, get us involved in a long war, get the money flowing, right, to all these projects that they want to do. But the reality of Afghanistan was it was poppy, right? It all really came down to poppy, opium, and, you saw that when the Taliban moved in, right? And say what you want about the Taliban, right? Are they good? Are they bad? Right? You could say you could make that argument either way. But the one thing that the Taliban did that was interesting was they got rid of all the poppy. They destroyed it. And if they caught you with poppy, growing poppy anywhere, you had a problem, right? And what did that do? That shut down the heroin market worldwide, because 90+% of the heroin worldwide comes from the opium that's made grown in Afghanistan. It's the best opium in the world. It's the best poppy, pretty much. And you can go back to opium wars. You can look up all this stuff, right? Opium used to be imported into the United States. Go look up throughout most of the 1800s, and it was taxed as such. So that's why at one time you used to be able to go to an opium den in the Five Points in New York, right? Go smoke some opium, lay down, dream away for hours. They had opium dens not too far from where I live today, actually. Parts of Chinatown were known for it, right? So, interesting, right? What else is going on? Sidney Powell asked the Supreme Court to intervene and decertify states' results in Michigan, Arizona, Georgia, and Washington. She filed new cases in 4 states yesterday: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, and Wisconsin. She's now asking the Supreme Court to intervene and immediately decertify these states' results. So you can see they're going at the Supreme Court at all these different angles, right? One of these cases they have to accept. If they keep declining all these cases, what's the end result, right? You're going to start saying, well, what's wrong with these people? They're not even looking into it, right? They're not even giving these people a hearing half the time. They're just dismissing it outright. So how can you keep doing that with all this evidence, right? So in an announcement Friday, Powell said she'd filed an emergency request to the nation's top court, asking the justices to order officials in Georgia, Michigan, and Arizona to immediately decertify their 2020 election results and to prevent the state's presidential electors from casting votes in the Electoral College. An emergency filing is also anticipated for her Wisconsin case. Filings aim to maintain the status quo in the states in order to give the Supreme Court time to consider the allegations presented in her lawsuits. These cases raise constitutional issues and prove massive fraud. Our plaintiffs have standing. We the people will not allow rigged elections, she said. It's going to come down to this DNI report too, right, guys? If you saw in the EO that Trump put out right before the election, right? It says 45 days the DNI shall furnish a report showing if there were any meddling in the election or any other thing like that. That report comes out in 5 more days. Or before. It said up to 45, so it could come out any time, really. He gave him 45, so we'll see. Is it going to come out around the 17th, 18th? We'll see, right? It's going to be interesting. That's about it, guys. I don't know what else to talk about with you. I'm an old guy here. I'm tired, man. I never thought I would be doing newscasts and trying to inform people, But there's a lot of us out there, and I take a lot of heart from watching people who are just regular folks like me, who are trying to just share information that they feel is the truth, right? That's all we're trying to do here. And that's why I put all the links to the articles that I cover, and so that I'm not just putting out a headline with no substantial proof behind it, right? With no factual evidence. That's what I was seeing happen at the New York Times and, journalism places that I thought were good journalist sites that actually weren't, right? And so you're starting to see all this stuff come out. I just thought this was something about LA unbelievable. Newly elected LA DA says he will no longer prosecute trespassing, drug possession, drinking in public, resisting arrest. And this gets back to what they call broken windows policing, right? And Giuliani's talked about this in New York. This was a key thing that helped us clean up the city when it was really bad, like back in the early 90s, especially when the crack epidemic came through New York. Yeah, there were parts of Brooklyn back then that had huge murder rates. I mean, there were people just killing each other wholesale all over Brooklyn at that time in the early, 90, 91, 92, 90, those years where the crack epidemic really came through the city hard. And that was all engineered, we know now, right? If you look into Freeway Rick Ross and guys like him who were basically used by the CIA. I mean, how could a guy get that huge, right, unless he's being allowed to operate? So, and he was, of course, put in prison for many years, and he's speaking out now, and he's speaking out about his story, which is great. He's out, he's free. I believe he's free now for several years, and he's been out and talking about his experience. So he's an interesting character to check out, right? But you realize that was going on a long time, and people tried to come forward and talk about it, and they were injecting crack and drugs into inner cities for decades and decades. They did it. They allowed it to happen through different criminal organizations and stuff like that. So Anyway, guys, that's a whole other video, right? But we're just hanging in there. But just New Yorkers, I wanted to post this really just for my New York people, because I'm a New Yorker and I always will be in my heart and my mind. I love my state, but it's so hard to sit here and, and just watch it just get picked apart little piece by piece and destroyed, and to watch these poor business owners who are just trying to get by now have to, again, not be allowed indoor dining. And, I try to go to small stores, man. Even though if they charge me more, I don't care. I'd rather shop with the small guy and pay more and help him than go and give my money to Target and these horrible corporations. So that's just my take on it. But in New York, that's what they're really doing. I mean, you're seeing all kinds of places just shut down. And what's the end game of it, right? That's the thing, right? Is someone trying to drive a lot of people out of New York with stuff like this and then buy up all the commercial real estate at a pittance? That's what I think they're doing now, because you're driving the market way down. Not just the residential market is coming down, but definitely the commercial is, because, I mean, Midtown's just decimated. How could you even open a business there now, right? There's no one there to come buy your stuff. You're going to open a deli there? There's no one there. Right? No one's working around there anymore, not like it used to be. Now the question's going to become, is some interest going to start coming in? And, was that China's plan? Was that someone's plan? To, hey, let's make New York a smart city, but first we got to knock that real estate down about 15-25%. We can't afford it. We want to get it dirt cheap. And that's what I think is happening, and that's just my take on it, friends. And with that, just stay in your center, guys. Stay, do your I ams every day, right? I meant to mention that last time. The I am attributions, which is just saying I am and then something positive, right? You watch your life change when you start saying I am beautiful, I am powerful, I am anything positive, right? So with that, friends, I wish you peace and love, and just want to get this video out, and have a wonderful Sunday. And it looks like next week's going to be a big week. I feel it, man. So let's see how it all plays out. With that, friends, I wish you well. Peace and love. This is Ash signing off for now.